Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In today's video we're going to be reviewing Dissidia 012 Final Fantasy for the PlayStation Portable. The game was released in 2011 and is by Square-Enix. Is the game any good? Is it worth buying, especially now in 2018? Let's see. The game's story is basically set between two gods known as Chaos and Cosmos, who have been summoned and have summoned several warriors throughout the Final Fantasy universe to do battle with each other. And that's pretty much it. There are a few more details to the game's story, such as various characters agreeing with Chaos and various other characters agreeing with Cosmos, and why they're both fighting each other in some type of mirror universe, but essentially that is it. There are a few more details here and there, but essentially it's just a shallow excuse to get all these characters from previous Final Fantasy games together in a type of Super Smash Bros. Style setup. To be honest, the story isn't that important, and while the game does have a story mode which does go into a little more detail, it's basically the combat here which is what people will be coming for. It's not needing to be overly complicated, and the truth is, while it is nice that the game does have a story, it's not necessarily what the people will be coming for with this game. There is a story here, but to be honest, I don't think many people will actually care. Character-wise, you get a whole bunch of characters to choose from in this game, ranging from Squall from Final Fantasy VIII, and basically a whole load of others. You do get characters all the way from the very first game, all the way up to the Lightning series. You get a lot of characters to play from in this game, with their own abilities and special moves. The truth, however, is a lot of them do feel slightly samey, and they do all kind of handle exactly the same. So while you do get a whole load of characters to play as, they do feel slightly limited in their abilities, but this could just be down to the limitations of the PlayStation Portable itself. Personally, I'm happy with the characters, as they're some of my favourite characters here, and honestly some others which I just wasn't expecting, so it was quite a nice surprise. It is a good mixture of characters, but I do kind of feel like Square Enix missed an opportunity here. They could have added some DLC to this game, and added various other characters who would have fit in perfectly here, such as Zell from Final Fantasy VIII, and various other characters from previous other games. They could have done some DLC packages and added more characters to the game. It just feels like a missed opportunity here. That being said, however, there still are quite a lot of characters for you to get to play as, so I can't really complain too much. Gameplay is fast and frantic, and the only way I can explain this to anyone who's never played this type of game before is to say, think Dragon Ball Z. And it's essentially like that, but with loads of overpowered moves, combat which is practically aerial based throughout the entire match, and characters able to defy gravity, and lots of camera angle issues. This game has a lot of them. You see, it could just be down to the controls, or the lack of it. See, the problem is your opponent can jump out of sight, leaving you to wonder where the hell they've actually gone off to. And the camera can be moved by pressing the D-pad, but by the time you've done this, you're probably either going to get hurt, or there's probably going to be no point. You can move the D-pad and make it look like you're kind of trying to find a character, however it just seems much more easier to jump in the air, press triangle, and force your way up to the character to try and attack them there and then. Combat itself is very limited, with you only being able to pull off a few moves, but as I've mentioned before, PlayStation Portable and limitations. You do get standard attacks and heavy attacks, which I guess would be classed as magical, special, and summons, possibly. It does feel a tad samey for everyone, however, combat-wise. The characters, while having their own attacks and special moves, do essentially feel all the same, and I'm not 100% sure if this was done on purpose or not. This could have been done in a way to make it easy for newcomers to the series, or they could have just done this in a way, I guess, to try and make it more user-friendly? I'm not 100% sure, but the fact is that while you do have a lot of characters to play as, they do kind of feel a bit samey, and I'm not really sure if Square Enix meant to do this or not. Gameplay itself is good, it just feels very limited. Graphics wise, it's okay, but the truth is, it is nothing special. I wasn't expecting the game to look anything like PlayStation 2's Metal Gear Solid 2 or anything like that, because I do understand it is a PlayStation portable, and I do understand it does have its limits. I'm not trying to be mean to the PlayStation portable or anything, it's just I understand that it does have its limits and it's not a powerhouse. When it comes down to PlayStation portable graphics, the game always was going to have its limits, but I do wish that Square Enix had pushed this game, like what Konami did with Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, which is an absolutely beautiful game to look at. You do get some decent enough graphics, but I really can't help but feel that they could have looked better somehow. If anything, the graphics look slightly improved upon than a PlayStation 1 game. The game has better resolutions and textures, and possibly some type of anti-aliasing. It's not bad, I'm just not exactly singing any praises for the game anytime soon when it comes to its graphics. They're good, and they do the job. I just feel they could have been a whole lot better. I feel like Square Enix made this game on a budget, kept to that budget, and never once thought, let's spend some extra money here. Let's really see just how far we can push the PlayStation Portable to its limits graphics wise. Because this is a good game, and it could have looked really good, but they just chose not to try. The game world which is being created is rather good, if rather small. Some stages look really well created, such as the final stage from Final Fantasy X, while other stages just look really odd or badly designed in comparison. The stages are a case of hit and miss, and it really is hit and miss. You see, some stages are great while others just look rather empty or too cluttered for their own good, or they're in an enclosed space and you can't really see anything because a wall gets in the way or the ceiling gets in the way or something gets in the way from your view. It's strange as well because some really famous areas from past Final Fantasy games are here, and then some other areas just aren't, such as Sector 7 from Final Fantasy VII, or Garden from FF8, or the airship from Final Fantasy IX. There's loads of great levels which could have been added here, but instead they're just not. And instead you get a small handful of some obscure levels, which I'm not even sure what game they're actually even from, and then some other great levels, and then some odd levels. So while you do get a fair amount of levels and a decent amount of them, as I've said before, it really is a case of hit and miss with some of them. It would have been great if maybe there was a DLC for the game, where you could have had extra levels that you could download. But again, it just feels like a missed opportunity, or almost like Square Enix just couldn't be bothered. Thinking of buying the game? Well, I guess that depends on what type of reasoning it is that you're buying the game for. If you're like a friend of mine who collects consoles and old games and pretty much everything else like that, then I guess you're probably going to have a PlayStation Portable in your collection already. And if you're looking for the best games for that console, then I would say this passes for one of them. However, if you're not into collecting consoles, then it's doubtful that you're just going to have a PlayStation Portable on hand for no reason. And if you do happen to have a PlayStation Portable on hand, then it's most likely going to be because you've modified it to play emulated games. Now, with all that being said, I can't really justify buying the PlayStation Portable as it is, just for one or two games. Because the truth of the matter is when it comes down to the PlayStation Portable, I can only really think of possibly 10 games that actually make the console worthwhile. So, is it actually worth purchasing this game, and possibly a PlayStation Portable? I'd have to say no. The games are pretty cheap to get a hold of, especially now, and I do recommend the game because it is actually rather a good game. However, you can actually emulate this on the PC via the PlayStation Portable emulator. Doing this means you can play the game on a much higher resolution, force anti-aliasing, and a ton of other various features, which originally the handheld just can't do. There's also so many more benefits to doing this, such as adding new skins or adding new characters that you couldn't do before. With all this being said, I honestly think the best way to enjoy this game and to get the most out of it is honestly to emulate it, because at least this way you can improve the graphics and also play it on a big screen. So would I recommend this game? Possibly, depending if you already have a PlayStation Portable or not. If not, I would recommend you emulate it. Well, that's it for this review, guys. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and please subscribe.